Wonder, Part 4. Charlotte basically didn't stop talking as we headed down to the second floor. She was describing the play they'd put on last year, which was Oliver. She played Oliver, even though she's a girl. As she said this, she pushed open the double doors to a huge auditorium. At the other end of the room was a stage. Charlotte started skipping towards the stage. Julian ran after her and then turned around halfway down the aisle. "Come on," he said loudly, waving for me to follow him, which I did. "There were like hundreds of people in the audience that night," said Charlotte, and it took me over a second to realise she was still talking about Oliver. I was so nervous. I had so many lines and I had all these songs to sing. It was so hard. Although she was talking to me, she didn't really look at me much. On opening night, my parents were all the way in the back of the auditorium, like where Jack is now. But when the lights are off, you really can't see that far back. So I was like, where are my parents? Where are my parents? And then Mr. Resnick, our theatre arts teacher last year, he said, "Charlotte, stop being such a diva." And I was like, okay. And then I spotted my parents and I was totally fine. I didn't forget a single line. While she was talking, I noticed Julian staring at me out of the corner of his eye. This is something I see people do a lot with me. They think I don't know they're staring, but I can tell by the way their heads are tilted. I turned around to see where Jack was. He had stayed in the back of the auditorium like he was bored. "We put on a play every year," said Charlotte. "I don't think he's going to want to be in the school play, Charlotte," said Julian sarcastically. "You can be in the play without actually being in the play," Charlotte answered, looking at me. "You can do the lighting, you can paint the backdrops." "Oh yeah, whoopee," said Julian, twirling his fingers in the air. "But you don't have to take the theatre arts elective if you don't want to," Charlotte said, shrugging. "There's dance or chorus or band, there's leadership." "Only dorks take leadership," Julian interrupted. "Julian, you are being so obnoxious," said Charlotte, which made Julian laugh. "I'm taking the science elective," I said. "Cool," said Charlotte. Julian looked directly at me. "The science elective is supposedly the hardest elective of all," he said. "No offence, but if you've never ever been to a school before, why do you think you're suddenly going to be so smart enough to take the science elective? I mean, have you even studied science before? Like real science, not like the kind you do in kits?" "Yeah," I nodded. "He was homeschooled, Julian," said Charlotte. "What, so teachers came to his house?" asked Julian, looking puzzled. "No, his mother taught him," answered Charlotte. "Is she a teacher?" Julian said. "Is your mum a teacher?" Charlotte asked me. "No," I said. "So she's not a real teacher," said Julian, as if that proved his point. "That's what I mean. How can someone who's not a real teacher actually teach science?" "Look, I'm sure you'll do just fine," said Charlotte, looking at me. "Let's just go to the library now," Jack called out, sounding really bored. "Why is your hair so long?" Julian said to me. He sounded like he was annoyed. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just shrugged. "Can I ask you a question?" he said. I shrugged again. Didn't he just ask me a question? "What's the deal with your face? I mean, were you in a fire or something?" "Julian, that's so rude," said Charlotte. "I'm not being rude," said Julian. "I'm just asking a question. Mr. Tushman said we could ask questions if we wanted to." "Not rude questions like that," said Charlotte. "Besides, he wasn't born like that. Besides, he was born like that. That's what Mr. Tushman said. You just weren't listening." "I was so listening. I just thought maybe he was in a fire too." "Jeez, Julian," said Jack. "Just shut up." "You shut up," Julian yelled. "Come on, August," said Jack. "Let's just go to the library already." I walked towards Jack and followed him out of the auditorium. He held the double doors open for me, and as I passed by, he looked me right in the face, kind of daring me to look back at him, which I did. Then I actually smiled. Well, I don't know. Sometimes when I have the feeling like I'm almost crying, it can turn into an almost laughing feeling. And that's what must have been the feeling I have then, because I smiled almost like I was going to giggle. The thing is, because of the way my face is, people who don't know me very well don't always get that I'm smiling. My mouth doesn't go up at the corners the way other people's mouths do. It just goes straight across my face. But somehow Jack Will got that I had smiled at him, and he smiled back. "Julian's a jerk," he whispered before Julian and Charlotte reached us. "But dude, you're going to have to talk." He said this seriously, like he was trying to help me. I nodded as Julian and Charlotte caught up to us. We were all quiet for a second, all of just nodding, looking at the four. Then I looked up at Julian's. "The word supposedly, by the way," I said. "What are you talking about?" "You said supposedly before," I said. "I did not." Yeah, you did," Charlotte nodded. "You said the science elective is supposedly really hard. I heard you." "I absolutely did not," he insisted. "Whatever," said Jack. "Let's just go." "Yeah, let's just go," agreed Charlotte, following Jack down the stairs to the next floor. I started to follow her, but Julian cut right in front of me, which actually made me stumble backwards. Oops, sorry about that, said Julian, but I could tell from the way he looked at me that he wasn't really sorry at all. The deal. Mum and Mr. Tushman were talking when we got back to the office. Mrs. Garcia was the first to see us come back, and she started smiling her shiny smile as we walked in. So, August, what did you think? Did you like what you saw? She asked. Yeah, I nodded, looking over at Mum. Jack, Julian and Charlotte were standing by the door, not sure where to go or if they still needed. I wondered what else they'd been told about me before they'd met me. Did you see the baby chick? Mum asked me. As I shook my head, Julian said, Are you talking about the baby chicks in science? Those get donated to a farm at the end of every school year. Oh, said Mum, disappointed. But they hatch new ones every year in science, Julian added. So August will be able to see them again in the spring. Oh, good, said Mum, eyeing to me. They were so cute, August. I wish you wouldn't talk like that to me, like I was a baby in front of other people. So, August, said Mr. Tushman, did these guys show you around enough, or do you want to see some more? I realised I forgot to ask them to show you the gym. Oh, we did anyway, said Mr. Tushman, said Julian. Excellent, said Mr. Tushman. Anna told him about the school play and some of the electives, said Charlotte. Oh, no, she said suddenly. We forgot to show him the art room. Oh, that's okay, said Mr. Tushman. But we can show it to him now, Charlotte offered. Don't we have to pick up Via soon? I asked Mum. That was our signal for my telling Mum if I really wanted to leave. Oh, you're right, said Mum, getting up. I could tell she was pretending to check the time on her watch. I'm sorry, everybody. I lost track of time. We have to pick up my daughter at a new school. She's taking an unofficial tour today. This part wasn't a lie, that Via was checking out her new school today. The part that was a lie was that we were picking her up at the school, which we weren't. She was coming home with Dad later. Where does she go to school? Asked Mr. Tushman, getting up. Oh, she's starting Faulkner High School this fall. Wow, that's not an easy school to get into. Good for her. Oh, thank you, said Mum, nodding. It'll be a bit of a schlep, though. The A train down the 86th, then the crosstown bus all the way to the east side. Takes an hour that way, but it's just a 15-minute drive. It'll be worth it. I know a couple of kids who got into Faulkner and love it, said Mr. Tushman. We should really go, Mum, I said, tugging at her pocketbook. We said goodbye kind of quickly after that. I think Mr. Tushman was a little surprised that we were leaving so suddenly, and then I wondered if he would blame Jack and Charlotte, even though it was really only Julian who made me kind of bad. Everyone was really nice, I made sure to tell Mr. Tushman before we left. I look forward to having you as a student, said Mr. Tushman, patting my back. Bye, I said to Jack, Charlotte and Julian, but I didn't look at them, or look up at all, until I left the building.